the Double Tech Podcast, the Double Tech Faithful. Welcome back. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever and whenever you are listening. We are here on Saturday morning, 9:38 a.m. Central Time, 10:38 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, 8:38 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. And don't even ask me about Pacific because I got no idea.
We're worldwide, E. We're worldwide. And like
We
you
are
said, the Double Tech Faithful. I like that. We're going to trademark that. That's what our fan base is called.
Wherever you may reside, we are here and we are filming yet again another episode. And the juices are absolutely flowing today.
Overflowing.
Trent, can you talk to me? Can you give me something?
Yeah, well, I told you. I mean, just to peel the curtain back a little bit, I mean, Ethan and I chat for a few minutes before we start recording, before we hit the big red button. And today I told him, I said, dude, I woke up naturally today. Usually I set an alarm because Ethan and I do this on Saturday mornings. And, Saturday mornings sometimes is a little slow moving. Right. But I naturally woke up on the weekend and I was just like, I got an hour before the show. I got some ideas. Let's just pump this out. Let's do a little research and development, a little R&D. Let's do some. And I'm feeling really good. You got a great Pistons hoodie on for the listener audience. Go tune into the YouTube. I got my January, February Izzo shirt on because
come on now, let's go.
We all know what month it is. It's March now, baby.
It's March, baby.
That's going to largely be the theme, at least from my end, Ethan. We got college hoops to talk about today. But how are you? Enlighten me.
Dude, Trent, you might be the difference today, to be completely honest, man. You are bringing me out. I've been tired these last couple days, man. I had a long day at work yesterday, and then I went and I'm also a server at nights. So I work Friday nights as well as a server. So sometimes it's like a 16-hour
I did not know
day.
that. Wait, okay, hold on. So where do you work?
So I actually work at like a local pub. It's like down the street from my middle school. Yeah, I'm a server.
I love that.
So but it's fun. I have some pretty cool coworkers, a pretty good boss, and it's weird because you interact with the students all day, middle school students, right? And then you flip the script, and then you go and you interact with like people your age. So sometimes it's actually a nice change of scenery, getting to talk to some like adults a little bit.
But sometimes those adults have about the same maturity level as middle school students, and then that's where you find yourself with it. Dude, that's awesome though. If I could pick like 3 of my friends from high school that would be great servers and make really good tips, you'd probably be on that list.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. But no, at school yesterday, so you bring up March. We did a super fun like review activity where there's this game called Trashketball where they it's like you answer a question right and then you shoot paper buckets.
Yeah.
Dude, I threw on the March Madness theme and I was back there. I was back there like Gus Johnson, and it was some of the best stuff. Some of my students came up and they were like, "Mr. Rice, you should pursue a career in NBA commentating the way you're talking back there." And I'm like, "Hey, could be.
DMs are open.
You might not see me in a couple years. You know what I'm saying?" But it was a good time, and that just reminded me of that. But yeah, we're tired. We woke up a little bit early today to watch some Premier League. And we're live right now. I got some coffee, I got some water, I got my notes, and we're absolutely fired up and ready to go, Trent, to be completely honest.
100%. And Ethan, this is probably a good time for us to tease this before we get into the episode. We are going to be doing a March Madness Double Tech Bracket Challenge. You think you can beat the best? I mean, I don't know, Ethan. I won our group last year. Now we're going to bring the listeners in. You won fantasy football, so there's a little bit of a rivalry there between you and I.
It's a couple champions.
It's like we have pedigree, if you will. But we will let you all in on that probably next week after conference tournaments wrap up, after Selection Sunday happens and the bracket's set. We will have a bracket tournament challenge pool. It'll be free to join. It'll simply just be, you want to be the best, you got to beat the best. And that's me and this guy over here.
Play the pros. Simple as that. You got to play the pros. And I love that, Trent. We might as well get into our next big announcement.
Absolutely.
We are live on a couple social media platforms. We have an Instagram account now. We're trying to boost engagement, boost our following. We want to get our faithful involved with the content. So what I want you to do right now is I want you to pull out your phones, your cellular devices, your smart TVs, your toasters, your laptops, whatever you do Instagram on. And I want you to open up the Instagram and then go over to the Double Tech. No spaces. A pretty sick username, I think. I didn't think that would be there.
Well, that just speaks to our creative acumen, Ethan.
Exactly.
We came up with this name, and it wasn't taken yet, so we're one of a kind.
Exactly. We're birthed. We're original. The Double Tech, no spaces. Throw us a follow. Throw us a comment. Throw us a DM. Shoot us something you want us to talk about, whatever it may be. We are here, and we are now live on the socials. If you want to go over and head on to Twitter, or formerly known as Twitter, now it is called X, you can also throw on some, it's more live sports content. You know, we're chiming in on the sports happening right now. You can follow us at DoubleTech_pod. DoubleTech_pod, that would be on the X. But yeah, we are now live on the social medias. We are here. We are making YouTubes. We're doing the shorts. I feel like I sound like I'm 100 years old when I talk about this, Trent. But regardless, we want to make this experience better for our fans. We want to make it more engaging. And we love you guys. And we love the people that have stuck around. We love you even if you haven't stuck around. We appreciate the listen. And hopefully you find something you like in there.
And, I mean, last week we had our first guest, the great David Brazil, the Maine Black Bears, who won yesterday against UMass. How are you? They got the W. They play again tonight at 7 o'clock as we record, Ethan, on a Saturday morning. But I only bring that up to say, hey, we got some decent engagement from the David interview. If you guys want to hear more guests, drop a little suggestion in the comments. We'd love to. We're going to die trying, getting whoever we can on the show. It'll be great. But we really do love the engagement. So any engagement is good engagement. Reach out. Talk to us. We'll talk to you. We'll talk back.
Yeah,
we're not going big league yet.
I gotta listen, Trent. We love the engagement. We love the following. I gotta tell a little story about one of our followers here. Can
do it? Yeah.
So, I'm gonna tell a story. I don't know if I can say his name because of like privacy reasons. One of my students. He's not even my student, Trent. He's not my student.
He's a student.
He's on a different team.
Gotcha.
He has listened to every single podcast. He's listened to every single podcast, and every single at like the Monday or Tuesday of the next week, he'll come into my room and he'll be like, hey, like the pod. And I'm like, thanks, man. But he comes in and he was like, hey, I listened to the pod. And I was like, hey, Black Bear Nation, right? And he was like, I just don't really watch hockey. And I was like, well, you got to be a Black Bears fan now.
Yeah.
And so Friday, he comes into my room at the end of the day and he's like, hey, Black Bear Nation tonight. And I was like, we got to clap it up for Maine. We got to clap it up. It's a big game tonight. But it was just funny having that sort of interaction, man. So shout out to him. He knows who he is. He'll probably hear this and go buck wild. But he's awesome. And we love getting you guys involved. Black Bear Nation, U.S. Cellular, we're here. And
U.S. Cellular, hit us up. Also, any of Mr. Rice's students that are listening to this, we love all of you. I've never met any of you. Maybe I should come in and be a guest reader for March's meeting.
Yeah, we would absolutely love a guest reader in the room. That would be awesome.
Get us back on track.
Trent, we have some fun on here. We really do. But I hear, Trent, that you also have a story to open us up today.
I had a snafu this week at work. I produce a show down here in Florida called Miller and Moulton. Moulton like the lava, but not spelled like the lava. It's spelled Moulton. Again, that's Moulton. Check it out if you want. It is the #1 sports talk show in the state of Florida. So I'm not trying to say it's a big deal. What I'm trying to say is that we have listeners. 6 to 10 a.m. A lot of people on their way to work. A lot of people just tuning in as it is. We go live on Twitch every morning along with over the airwaves, all that good stuff. Miller, who is one of the co-hosts, Mark Miller, the GOAT, he took Thursday and Friday of this week off. He had a big golf event with his country club, and it was just a big it was a big thing, once-a-year event. I forget the name of it. But So he took those days off. So I, as the producer, got to sort of step into the co-host role and co-host for 2 days. So I thought. Then I get there on Thursday morning. None of the equipment's working. I can't make this up. I've had this job now for like 5 months. This has never happened. The equipment straight up isn't working. Computers won't work. When we get on the air, there's a bad echo. I mean, it's unlistenable on the air. So we tried to go live. Me and David Moulton, who's the other co-host, who also, Ethan, not to name drop, he is Troy Aikman's spotter on Monday Night Football. Excuse me, little voice crack there.
Spotter?
And he's a spotter, so he's like his right-hand man. He's in the booth next to Troy Aikman the whole game, handing him stats, sticky notes, like that sort of stuff. Like, that's who this was. He just broke this record, that kind of stuff. So a lot of what you hear from Troy comes from David Moulton. Long story short, me and him are trying to chop it up. We're trying to get the show going. We're like 10 minutes in, and we just realized it ain't going to happen. And I was just so distraught because I was like, this is my chance to burst onto the scene. This is my LeBron against the Pistons moment in 07 where I'm going to score 27 straight or whatever it was. But hey, we came back on Friday, yesterday, as we recorded today on a Saturday, and we had a great show. All the equipment worked. It was awesome. But I just wanted to bring that up because, of course, right? The one day that I get to maybe showcase my skill set and maybe step into a bigger role and have some fun, nothing works.
That is very tough. I think there's also a piece of learning in there that's about, making this grand plan that you might have, and then a little piece of it goes wrong. But you know what? Just like you said, you didn't quit. You didn't close the book. You just turned the page.
Yeah. We turned the page. I love what you just said. I love that.
You kept reading. You know what I'm saying? Because there's more to the story. I feel like there's like levels of fame. You know what I'm saying? And in no way am I saying we are famous at all. Okay, we're completely the opposite, maybe. But I feel like you get on TV, maybe you get on a commercial, but once you get on live radio, I feel like that's a moment right there. You know what I'm saying?
Well, yeah, here's the other thing. People relax on the radio because you're not on camera. It's so different when you're on camera. Like even this, Ethan, you and I talking to each other, we have to be somewhat aware of what we look like and what's behind us and what's on camera, right? You don't want you don't want to get canceled. You don't want anything going wrong. Exactly. On the radio, you can kind of just relax. You're talking. There's no camera. There's no bright lights. You're sitting there chatting, having a conversation. And that's why I like radio so much more. But you're right. I mean, like, radio is it's just as big as TV in the respect that it's nationally, anyone can pretty much reach it. It's available. It's there. You just don't always think of it that way because it's not, no one can see you, but they can hear you. And that's why that's where the old joke, you've got a face for radio came from, of like, okay,
I never heard that, but that's pretty funny.
You know what you're talking about. You're good, but you got a face for radio. You would never work on TV because you are ugly. There's that.
What about you know how like people can like call into the radio? They do like the call-ins.
Oh yeah.
I feel like some people would never say that if they were on TV.
Correct. If they had to disclose their identity and be on TV and be in front of the world and face the world and all that good stuff, no, they wouldn't say half that stuff. You're exactly right. Radio is the best way to get unfiltered opinions out of the public of America. How's that?
I'll say, man, if the radio didn't have so many like commercials, I would be bought in. I'd be bought into it. But like just with Spotify and Apple Music, it's a large competitor. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
That's why a lot of the live radio shows, like our show, we post it as a podcast afterwards without commercials because that's what people want, right? Yeah. I mean, for the hour, you get about 40 minutes of content because there's 20 minutes of commercials dispersed throughout the show. So we do that for that exact reason, because you're right. Like our generation and the younger generation behind us, it's all about consuming stuff and never stopping and go and attention span and can't have commercials. But hey, that's why we got to love ourselves. We got to embrace it. And that's why you and I are doing a podcast right now, dang it.
That's why we're doing it. Come on. This is why we're here. We're here for the people, and we love the people. But anyways, listen to Moulton and Miller.
Miller and Moulton, yes.
Miller and Moulton.
If you looked up Moulton and Miller, you'd probably find the show, so that's fine. But Miller and Moulton is how it's presented.
Shout out Florida residents. You'll hear this guy every once in a while, it sounds like. And if Friday got good ratings, you might hear it more often, folks. He might have a regular little segment in there.
And conversely, if the ratings were terrible, I might be out of a job here in a week.
You'll never hear from him again, actually. Man, but we got some headlines, Trent. But I got kind of I like starting us off with these kind of open-ended questions where we get to warm up our brains, warm up our minds. You know, I'm coming from a teacher background, right? I like to get the brain juices flowing here. Can I ask you a question?
Of course.
We're talking sports announcers today, sports commentators.
Okay, yes, right up my alley. Love this.
You got to pick 3 of them, but here's the deal. One of them officiates the wedding. One of them gives the eulogy at your funeral. And then one of them commentates a pickup basketball game.
Okay. So right off the dome, this is an outstanding question by you, by the way. Right off the dome, who's going to officiate or who's going to call the basketball game? That's Bill Raftery, 100%. I don't know if you're familiar, E. He does mostly Big East basketball color commentator. He's the one that says onions. And
yeah, I know.
Deck delivery from the freshman. Get the puppies in order. That's the guy I would have 100% picked to do. Could you imagine him commentating a pickup game with you, me, like all of our buddies, and like Jack hits some insane fader, and he's just like, ah!
yeah.
I would kill for that. Who's gonna officiate the wedding? Right, that's the other one.
Yep.
Gus Johnson. Gus Johnson would do a great job because he wouldn't go over the top. He'd be nice and electric, keep the energy high, but it would be nothing. Thered be no gimmicks. He'd just be like, and now walking down the aisle is, you know, and then he'd go into the whole thing.
Down
then
the aisle.
Who has to give my eulogy?
Yeah.
Jim Nantz. Jim Nantz, probably. I would maybe say Al Michaels, but he's getting a little long in the tooth. Not that I'm not against age, but Jim Nantz would probably he would deliver the calmest, deepest, would probably come across as the most authentic. That's my answer, Jim Nantz. I want to hear what you got to say about those, and what you got to say about your own, of course.
So this was a tough question. I had to think about this.
It's a great question. It is a great question.
For pickup hoops, I had Gus Johnson.
Okay.
I think that guy goes nuts in the studio, and I think he's got exactly the type of hype you need with a pickup basketball game with all the twists and turns. I got Gus Johnson at the pickup hoop spot. Now, for officiating the wedding, I had this going 2 ways. I had Jim Nantz as one of them, but then I also had Kevin Harlan as the other one. I think that can go both ways. I think they're both very professional. I think they're both used to being in front of people. And like a big thing there is I'm not looking for somebody to steal the show necessarily. You know?
Right.
I don't need a massive personality. I just need somebody who's professional, somebody who's like willing to talk clearly and to give their opinion like clearly, you know, talk
clock in, clock out. Do your job.
Exactly.
Yes.
Now for the funeral, I went off the rails a little bit.
Okay.
I've been watching soccer. Peter Drury.
Oh, I've heard of him. I'm not
Peter
super
Drury's
familiar with his work.
One of the best soccer announcers of all time, in my opinion. Some of his calls, it's like he's telling a story, and he's very emotional about it. If you look at some of like the mid 2000s stuff with like Ronaldo and Messi in that era, and like some of the derby matches, just like some of his calls are like, you would think he's reading a script, but it's like he's just like going in and telling a story about how the fans have never seen anything quite like this today. It's wild, but I love it. So give me Peter Drury for the eulogy.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah, fun little question, man. Fun little question.
I'm picturing in the spirit of David doing his interview last week. I'm picturing you throw it into David in a pickup game, and Bill Raftery's like, well, give it to the big fella. Down low. The big fella. The main black bear.
Down low. Oh man, good times. Well, Trent, we got some headlines to get into. There's not many headlines, but there's a couple things that I wanted to touch on. First and foremost, Trent, we can quite literally sniff the fart of March Madness as of right now. It is that
It's
close.
happening.
It is that close.
Yeah.
So I wanted to start with some March Madness talk, some bubble watch, some first four in, first four out, and I know that this is your wheelhouse. So I kind of want to let you run with this. You have your two movers up and your two movers down, your two risers and your two fallers. If you want to go ahead and get in on that action.
I want to call it, by the way, the ballers and the fallers. That's
the
what
fallers and the fallers.
That's what, two teams trending up, two teams trending down. And this was your idea to bring this segment to life. But I appreciate it. Feel free to hop in when you see fit. Excuse me. So, number one team on the rise, the Tennessee Volunteers. They're number 4 in the nation right now. They had 2 great road wins. I think they beat Bama and then they beat South Carolina. Not only are both those teams ranked, but they beat them on the road. So for Tennessee to do that in the last week, I have to put them on that list right now. They're looking like a 1 seed in the tournament. They will certainly get a 1 if they beat Kentucky today at 4 o'clock on CBS. That is taking place today. Not sure if this will be out in time before that game. But just keep an eye on the Volunteers. They deserve some flowers. This is kind of like...
Besides Dalton Connect, is that his name?
Yeah.
Because he's the only guy that I've heard of, and like he's obviously in this, like in the talks for winning the Player of the Year,
right?
And all this stuff. But like I haven't heard anything else other than him. Like, what is Tennessee known for? Are they a defensive team?
Well, so I'm not going to lie to you and act like I know the roster in and out, but I'll tell you this. I mean, there are a lot of cases in college. It's like your identity is what the coach is, and with Rick Barnes, it's kind of take no-ish. We're going to come and punch you in the mouth, that sort of thing. Now, I will say that leads me into this last point, which is like putting Tennessee in my risers or my ballers, whatever I'm calling it, is kind of like choosing Purdue a couple weeks ago. Like, I know they're having a good season. I still don't trust them. Rick Barnes has never performed well in the tournament, but he's always had really solid teams. And like I said, fundamentally sound, punch you in the mouth, start to finish. Not a whole lot of transfer action, a lot of 4-year players, that sort of thing. You remember like Admiral Schofield?
Yeah.
Like just one of those names that like he almost won National Player of the Year, one of the best top 5 players in college hoops, and then he does nothing at the pro level. Like that's just kind of what Rick Barnes is able
Grant
to do.
Williams too? Didn't Grant Williams go to Tennessee?
Same era, yeah. So there was and shout out to our good friend Cole Behrens. I don't know if he's listening to this, but I remember one year he was all in on Tennessee. He like bought the shooting shirt. That was his team.
He bought the shooting shirt.
Yeah, Vols, and then of course Rick Barnes let him down. I don't even know if he made the Sweet 16, but there's that. Another team, This has been a season for the Blue Bloods. Okay, Duke, North Carolina, Kansas, UConn, Kentucky. They're all right up there. Not only are they nationally ranked, you could make a case for all of them that they could legitimately cut down the nets. Okay. And because of all that attention, and even throw in a Purdue, a Houston, teams that are getting Marquette, teams that are getting all the love. There's a team that's laying in the weeds. There's a team that's hanging in the balance that very well could get a 1 seed, and that's the Arizona Wildcats. That team right now. Now, I know they're playing a little bit of a weaker Pac-12. They play late at night. Not a whole lot of people see their games, but they're 15-1 at home by my count. They have 8 quad 1 wins. I mean, that's about as good as it gets in the country. So just keep an eye on Arizona. No one's talking about them because, and by the way, I don't blame the national media. You talk about UNC, talk about Duke, talk about Kansas, talk about Purdue. That's what's going to get the most attention. But Arizona right now, I mean, I just told you Tennessee might get a 1 seed. Arizona has just as good a chance, and they've got the closer in Caleb Love. Stars win in March. They've got the resume. Keep an eye on the Wildcats.
I think that's fuel for them too, because they definitely know that they're not being talked about enough, and that's all that they talk. That's probably all that they prey on in the locker room before the games. It's like, hey, we're going under the radar. They don't respect us yet, and that just makes them want it more. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. And an honorable mention, Ethan, before I move to the fallers. this is going to come across as so ridiculous, but this is a team in state down here in Florida, okay? They're playing in the ASUN championship today, the ASUN tournament championship, or I think it's tomorrow, but obviously winner of that gets an automatic bid to the NCAA tournament. This is a team that hasn't made the NCAA tournament since the 1970s, and when they made it, they were Division II. So this is unprecedented territory, uncharted waters for the Stetson Hatters. Keep an eye on those guys. If they win tomorrow, they'll be in the tournament for the first time since the 1970s, the Nixon administration. And if I might add, this gets even more fun because they're going to be a 16 seed in the tournament if they do make it. And they might even be in the first four in Dayton. So when we're watching on Wednesday night, we're watching the first four before that first big weekend of March Madness. You might be watching the Stetson Hatters. I'm rooting for them. Go Hatters. Come on.
Stetson
Make the run.
Hatters.
Yes. Their small fan base on X has been really soaking it in the last few days. I'm looking forward to hopefully seeing those guys make the tournament.
So where are they at in Florida?
North, I think. I don't even know, Ethan. I think they're in North Florida. Like they're up there.
Tallahassee? That's
maybe.
North, right?
Tallahassee is like Gainesville, is like Jacksonville, is like Orlando. Like I don't even know where anything is in this state. I have no idea. I'm just a boy. Okay. I got a couple fallers for you. I'll make these ones a little bit quicker, but this is maybe more of a pressure pick than a straight up faller. But the Drake Bulldogs. You might know the Drake Bulldogs because they've represented the Missouri Valley Conference in 2 of the last 3 NCAA tournaments. Kind of been a household name. People love to pick them as a 12 seed or an 11. You're familiar with Drake a little bit. But there's a new sheriff in town in the Valley, and that's the Indiana State Sycamores. They're looking to make their first tournament, or I don't know when they last made the tournament, but this season they finally got ranked at one point for the first time since they had Larry Bird in 1979. So they're kind of on an unprecedented run of their own. Drake has been the class of the conference over the last few years, so I think the pressure's on Drake. They have to win the conference tournament, Arch Madness. They got to win it to get into the big dance. And I don't know if they're going to do it, because the Sycamores are on a mission this year. So there's that one.
The Indiana State, that is the team with Baby Jokic is what they're calling him.
Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, yes.
Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, yes.
He's got the rec specs on.
He's kind of nice. I'm not going to lie. He's kind of nice.
He's got good moves. And look, Michigan State beat Indiana State by the skin of their teeth this season. I had a front row seat to watch all that action. It was great. Not at the arena. Just I got to watch the game firsthand. Right. Okay. Second one for you. Second faller. San Diego State. I love the Mountain West, Ethan. Outside of the Big East, I don't think there's a conference I enjoy watching more than the Mountain West. The games are on a little bit later because of the time difference. You get to take it in. You know, you're not distracted by all the ACC, Big Ten, SEC action. You get to take in some Mountain West hoops. So the Aztecs, if you remember, just a season ago, lost to UConn in the national championship. They made a run. Here's the problem. They were kind of a darling last season. They were kind of sneaking up on some people last season. This year, they went from being the hunter, to the hunted. And it's kind of been par for the course this year. They're looking at maybe another 5 seed, which is no slouch. I mean, they might make some noise in the tournament. Here's the problem. E. There's always a 12 seed that beats a 5. And I don't know. I mean, this kind of seems like coming off that championship run, this feels like a very worthy candidate for a 12-5 upset if San Diego State stays on that 5 line. So I've got them as a faller. We'll see what they do. They've kind of tripped up over the last week or two, but they're surely going to make the tournament. But we'll just see what happens after that.
That's wild because you always hear San Diego State up there in that upper echelon of teams, you know?
Yeah,
right. I'm curious. So when they are making this bracket, I want to touch on that 5-12 seed thing. Do they put teams that are like susceptible to lose at the 5 seed on purpose?
No. So here's where it gets really interesting, E. You bring up a great point. You would think because of how that trend has gone over the years, that's kind of what they do. But here's the flip side. So the 12 line that's the lowest that they'll put any Power 5 school. So you will never see like an Iowa or a Nebraska or a South Carolina no matter how bad, quote unquote, they are, you'll never see them lower than a 12. They're never going to put them as a 13 or a 14 because they've got the D1 they're all D1 athletes, but they got the 5-star recruits. They have the big money. They played in a tough conference, so even if their record doesn't show it, they probably are the better team when you stack them up against like a Stetson Hatters that I just shouted out. So, so that's why that's tricky. Is you might get like a team that finishes 8th in the SEC and they're a 12 seed, and they won't go any lower than that. That's kind of the rat line, Ethan, where they put a team like, this is going to be a really specific example here, but so Georgetown in the Big East a couple years ago, I think it was 2021, they made a run. They won the Big East tournament, but they weren't any good before that. So they get the automatic bid, and obviously there were teams in the Big East like Creighton and Marquette that made it, and Providence that are going to make it no matter what. Georgetown plays spoiler. They steal a bid from someone else because they automatically qualify by winning the conference tournament, but they sucked all year. So what do you do with them? Stick them on the 12 line. So that's where you have to really pay attention to what a team did during the season, not just a cute name or a hot name like Georgetown. It's like, okay, are they actually any good? Are they actually worthy of a 12? Or is this a rat line right here? And I think that one year that they made it as a 12 seed, they got blown out by Colorado at Hinkle Fieldhouse. Shout out to Butler. They that was just not. But anyways, that's super inside basketball. But you bring up a great point, like the seed lines, and if you know this too, the first 4, there's always there's 2 11 seeds that have to play their way into the tournament. So that's kind of the last 2 to get in are the 2 11 seeds that are battling it out. The 12 line is where they get.
Interesting. See, I feel like I'm learning right now. This is like educational for me. I never knew the analytics and the science behind how the seeding works. Now, that makes me curious because you talked about how that might work for the 12 seed, where it's like the 8th seed in a Power 5 conference. But what about the 5 seed? Is that like the ceiling some teams can go?
Yeah, so the 5 seed, that's where you'll see a lot of like Mountain West teams or Big East teams that had a good season, but you don't really know if you trust them because they don't have the body of work that when you look at quad 1, quad 2, all that stuff, strength of schedule. And it's like, okay, they're a good team. They could make some weight. San Diego State last season's a perfect example of this. And honestly, UConn, who ended up winning it all, they were on the 4 line. It's that 4-5 line, that's kind of like the nationally ranked teams, but they're towards the bottom. Like, they're not the blue bloods that have been talked about all season. So, yeah, I mean, they're still nationally ranked teams, like you said, but they're towards the back end of that, if that makes sense. And then obviously that's when you get into the 7, 8, 9, which is like those it would take a Cinderella run to win it all.
Yeah. So last question I'm going to ask, because I'm genuinely interested in this conversation. I feel like I'm learning a lot. I feel like this is the first year where I've heard the phrase Q1 and Q2 wins. I feel like I've never heard that before, but I'm assuming, does that mean like you win against a team that's like 1 through 8 or like 1 through 15? Like, what is a Q1 win?
So I don't know what the cutoff is, but it's the top quadrant. So they basically cut up all D1 teams into 4 quarters, okay? And like the top quadrant of teams by the time the year's over, that's what quad 1 is. That's like so the cream of the crop. So how did you do in the cream of the, and like I was talking about Arizona earlier, they have 8 wins in Q1. So like that's what the bracket, and again, I'm not a bracketologist. I wish I was. That's like my dream job. I don't know what those guys get paid, but like I want to do it. This is my open audition right now. But if they put a ton of weight into that. Q1 and Q2. Those are really like the 2 ones that and then conversely, I mean, quad 3 can't help you, but it can certainly hurt you. I mean, like if you're like 0-3 in quad 3, they're going to look at you and be like, okay, well, you beat a couple good teams, but look at your quad 3 record. It's terrible. And then obviously there's quad 4, which is at that point, it's just, that's like that's the Detroit Mercies and like the teams that don't get anyone in the gym.
So
and
like
really small programs.
The quadrants are literally all the D1 teams, because like I've only heard like wins against top 25, but like regardless of if it's a top 25, there's quadrants of the entirety of the Division I schools.
Yes, and that's what the committee that makes the bracket looks at a lot more. That they don't take the AP top 25 into account at all. They don't take it into account because that's fluid. It changes throughout the season. the quad 1, quad 2, quad 3, quad 4. That's what they really look at because that speaks to how strong your schedule was and how you did throughout the season. Not you could beat Ethan. We remember, I think last year going into the year, North Carolina was preseason number 1. Then they missed the tournament. They missed the tournament. So what are we going to do here? Oh, you beat North Carolina week 1. So you technically beat the number 1 team in the country, but they didn't end up doing anything. Right. So it's not impressive. You know what I mean? So that's why the quad system is a way to kind of zoom out, if you will.
So do the quadrants change every week too, or is that set at the beginning of the year?
It changes a little bit, I believe, but not nearly as much as AP Top 25 because it's not voted on. It's just a system. It's like they plug the numbers in, and it just is what it is. Like that's and the net ranking too. That's what else they always talk about. Yeah. What's your net ranking? And I can't even get into that because I don't know how that works. But to answer your question, that's why they don't look at the AP Top 25 nearly as much as the quad system because the AP Top 25 is opinion. It's voted on. It's like the Heisman.
You could definitely do a little bracketology job, man.
Bro, I wish I could. Hit me up. CBS.
I've been watching college basketball sparsely at some times, but I've been watching college basketball all my life, and I'm just now learning about some of these things that you just told me. That could be me pleading ignorance, but
this is why I love Selection Sunday, and this is why, Ethan, I love this week that we just had and next week because that's the mid-major conferences, the small conferences, and when they win those tournaments, if you get bid stealers, like we just talked about in the Missouri Valley, so Indiana State's been nationally ranked this year. They're really good. They have a really good case to make the tournament, even without the automatic bid. If Drake wins that tournament, then it's Drake gets in automatically, and Indiana State could get in and steal a bid from one of the SEC teams or Big Ten teams that's kind of on the bubble, like Iowa or something like that. So that's why it's so interesting, and things really heat up here in these last couple weeks leading up to, of course, the big Power 5 conference tournaments happen this upcoming week. But, dude, I love this time of year. I could go on forever, but love this time of year.
It is fun. Coming from and graduating from Grand Canyon, we came from the WAC, so that's a small conference as well. And It was all the talk throughout the season is whoever wins that tournament, because nobody in the WAC is going to be ranked ever. There was a point where I thought GCU might be ranked earlier this year, but they probably don't have any Q1 wins. They beat South Carolina earlier. I think that's might be their only one. But we always talked about whoever wins the conference is going to make the tournament. So that was always just like the hope all year because we knew that there wasn't going to be any prime time Saturday night games where you're playing the 3 seed on the road or whatever,
Well, and for better or worse, Ethan, that's what makes it so interesting because it's like Grand Canyon. We could have a great season. We could go undefeated and just roll through the WAC. But if we don't win that conference tournament, we might not get into the big dance. Yeah. And it's kind of a shame on one hand, but on the other hand, it keeps things really spicy.
So, Trent, last question we're going to ask about college basketball here. What can we expect today and then this next week coming up? So it's currently March 9th. What can we expect coming up in this next week? Is that where we're going to start seeing the big conference start, the tournament start?
Yeah, and by the way, because I'm so OCD and I had to look this up, Grand Canyon, your boys, they're 1-1 in Quad 1 this year. So they do have a Quad 1 win. I don't know who it was over.
With South Carolina.
Okay, yeah, there you go. South Carolina, who's, I think, number 18 in the country right now. So anyways, what we can expect coming up: Big Ten tournament, SEC tournament, ACC tournament, Big East tournament. This is where you really start to see the blue bloods come back to the forefront. Just like the NBA, a little bit to a lesser extent, but it is a long season, and guys do check out. Guys are in and out. It's fluid. But when March hits, there's something about that calendar. When you tear that February page off the calendar, it's March. The stars come out. The seniors come out, the fifth-year seniors come out, the coaches win, and it's awesome. So, yes, you're exactly right. We're going to get to the bigger conference tournaments, and that's when I think this Sunday, Bobby Regan at Barstool Reegs, he had this take, and I completely agree. On Sunday on CBS, when we're watching the Arch Madness Championship game, which very well could be Drake and Indiana State, that's your first, holy crap moment. It's March. It's here. Because after that, that's when we start the big stuff. Like that's one of the mid majors, but they're towards the top, the Missouri Valley. Like
Yeah.
they get 2-3 teams in every now and then. Like that's when you really, really, really gas it up. So this whole next week, Ethan, I'm gonna be in a euphoric state, basically.
Yeah, sounds like it. You're honestly getting me excited for this, man. I'm really pumped right now, to be honest.
It is the best.
I want to watch some college hoops. Let's
It's
get
the
it
best.
going. Oh man, well that was
and also one last thing. This is what also makes it great. It's win or go home. It's survive and advance. This is not a best of 7 series where more likely than not the better team's going to win just because you can have an off night. You cannot have an off night. You can't take any nights off. Ask
Literally.
Virginia a couple years ago. Ask Purdue last year, lost to a 16 seed in round 1. You cannot take a night off in March, Ethan. You can't. Can't do it.
Something my coach always would say towards the end of the year, and like in our last game specifically, is like, and it's just a surreal moment. You know, obviously being in a small school, Division III, it's still crazy to hear. Like for seniors, this might be the last time you ever play competitive basketball.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you're talking about at the largest of scales on March Madness conference tournaments, and a 5th-year senior, you said, walking in, this could be the last time that you are ever in front of a crowd, ever in front of like refs like this, ever playing competitive basketball to this degree. That's a crazy moment.
And to keep your composure, like, because sometimes it's possession to possession, it's back and forth in the last minute, and you don't know. Like that moment doesn't hit you until maybe the final buzzer. Sometimes you gotta keep your cool.
Sometimes that moment won't hit you until years later too, where it's like, I really won't play basketball. Oh man! Speaking of college basketball, Trent, we're gonna move the needle here if you don't mind. We're coming away from March Madness talk. I want to zoom in a little bit at a specific college basketball game that's been in the headlines as of late. UAB and Temple has been flagged by, I don't know who they were flagged by, but there's some controversy because of some unusual gambling activity.
This is great. I'm so glad you brought this up. Keep going.
So I did a little bit of reading. I don't know much about it. All I know is that most sports books had UAB as a 2-point favorite. Is that right?
It went from 2, and I think it moved to 8 over the. You probably have the exact number, but
I don't have the exact. That's just what I heard. But then it ended up being an absolute rout.
Yes.
And then I was curious, Trent, because you probably know more about this, but like, what was the controversy there?
Dude, I don't know. I don't want to speculate too much because there might be people knocking on my door trying to whack me after this. I don't know. Here's the rumor. The rumor is there was like some sort of like mob involved or something.
What?
And they threw. I shouldn't have even said that. I don't know. The line moved from like 2.5 to 8 over the course of like 8 hours. And that never, ever happens. And that's why I got flagged for suspicious activity. And then you're right, Ethan, it ended up being an absolute blowout. It wasn't even a game. So there's some inkling somewhere that there was some extracurricular activity or some other parties involved. And it's ugly. Keep an eye on that story because we might get confirmation on some things this week, as details continue to come out. But kind of scary.
Yeah, and just with the amount of sports games that happen every single day, every single week, games don't usually get flagged. And you might be sitting like in your living room being like, oh, this game is so rigged. The refs rigged this game. But it's like, then you see something actually happen like that, and you're like, oh, this is what that looks like to be rigged.
Cheeky, shady, whatever verb you want or adjective you want to use. I mean, that's kind of, it's not good.
Yeah, and so we'll open that book and we'll close it by saying gamble responsibly if you are able. Do not be a part of shady schemes and questionable content such as that. Trent, anything else to say on college basketball before we keep the ball rolling here?
Take it in, everybody. Every single channel, there's going to be March Madness on. Watch it. Enjoy it. Soak it up. Unless you don't enjoy it, then don't do that. But I am biased, but I think this is the best playoffs in American sports.
It is.
And nothing brings the people together like a good old bracket pool. So again, I tell you, keep in mind, tune in next week. We'll have all the details for you. We're running a bracket pool with the double tech. Beat the best. That's us.
This is March. This is madness. This is college basketball. All right, moving on here. We are going to talk a little bit about the NBA. We are winding down. We're inching closer and closer to the end of the year. Personally, as I watch, I can kind of see the tensions arise. I can see that the stadiums are getting a little bit more intense. Those Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday afternoon games seem to draw a little bit more of a crowd to them. We are nearing the end of the NBA regular season, and we're getting closer to the playoffs. And this is when basketball, overall, I feel like March is just like that checkpoint where it's like, oh yeah, basketball is about to get really fun to watch. And especially towards the end of March, when we start getting to the end of the NBA regular season, it's going to be even better. But we are getting closer, and I want to say, I love the addition of the play-in, personally. I love the idea of teams getting a fighting chance that might have been right on the edge. I think that not only gives them, so like that 7 through 10, it not only gives them a reason to keep playing at the end of the season, but even if you're like 11-12, if you're 11-12, that gives you a reason because you want to play into the play-in.
Which, by the way, is hilarious because on a normal year, like 11-12, you're talking like that's the number 5 overall pick in the draft. Yeah. And the fact that the NBA keeps those teams engaged, I'm with you. It's great.
Yeah, I think it's good for the sport. But man, Trent, do you have a early NBA champion pick right now?
I still have faith in the Bucks to figure it out. I just do. I love Dame. I love Giannis. A lot of that team still has championship pedigree. Now, Doc Rivers.
Yeah, I was about to say, in a podcast that's been so famously against Doc Rivers, Trent still believes in the Milwaukee Bucks.
So I will plant my flag there. I think they're coming out of the East. Disclaimer, if the Miami Heat, if they avoid the play-in, we have seen the Heat go as the 8th seed to the finals. Yeah. We've seen the Heat go from the play-in last season. Ethan, they were seconds away from losing to the Bulls in the play-in and having their season over. They end up going to the finals, and I know they haven't done much in both those finals, but, like, I don't know. I reserve the Heat. I never know what to do with the Heat. And out west, I'll say this real quick, and then I want your thoughts. I got to backtrack on a take I had on one of the first episodes of the Double Tech. I gave the Clippers a lot of grief. I said, look, everyone loves it. They love the all-star, the old heads getting together, Harden, Westbrook, Kawhi, Paul George, all that good stuff. Someone's going to get hurt. They're not going to stay healthy. It's all going to come crashing down. Ethan, they have the 4th best record in the West. They're 2 games back from the defending champion Denver Nuggets. And you know what? They've won me over. I'm rooting for them. I'm not picking them. I'm definitely rooting for them. I would love for James Harden and Russell Westbrook and Paul George to get their ring. We know Kawhi has 2 already. But I would love for those guys to get their ring and do it together. So for the sake of parity on the show, I'm picking the Bucks out east. I'm picking the Clippers out west. And we'll keep tabs on that as we go. But I'm curious to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I feel like I don't hate those plays at all. I'm going to go a little bit of a different route. I think you were spot on when you said if you give Miami a breath of playoff contention, that is all they need. They could take a little piece of asphalt from the street and turn it into diamond at some point. Okay, all they need is a fighting chance. Okay, so I'm not going to let that go unsaid. Now, in my opinion, the Boston Celtics are trending in the wrong direction.
Yeah. Yep.
They are trending down, and Jason Tatum is beginning to be a problem. He is beginning to be a problem.
He takes some bad shots. He takes some really bad shots.
Bad shots, for sure. And listen, we've seen Jalen and Jason for a couple years now, and not even a couple. It's been a few. Let's up it to a few. And it hasn't worked. Okay? They made it to the finals When did they make it to the finals?
2 years ago, they lost to Golden State. 2 years ago, yeah.
2 years ago, and they had it in the finals. But like this project, it's not showing itself to be like very promising. And they just made Jaylen Brown the most paid player in the history of the NBA. Anyways, let me talk about who I think is going to do good. Okay, I would be shocked if the Nuggets were not in the finals again.
Okay, I can get behind
that.
They
are the truth. They are a dynasty. I think they can make this team into a dynasty very easily. They have built their team the right way. They're not going out offering crap tons of money to all these free agents, bringing people in from who knows where. They built from the draft. They got KCP in free agency. They got Aaron Gordon, but these guys are role players, man.
Right.
These guys are role players. And then you're looking at guys like Christian Brown or whatever. Who else do they got?
Well, they're deep, but just to double down on what you've been saying, yes, they drafted Jokic. They found him, diamond in the rough. They drafted Michael Porter Jr. late lottery. They drafted Jamal Murray, and they hit on that pick. So to your point, they've kind of, for all you old heads, or lack of a better term, who hate the super team, the joining forces, the Denver Nuggets are the antithesis of that. They've done it the right way, homegrown.
Yeah, and I think that ball is going to continue to roll. And it's good for the league. I think it's very good for the league. And you know what else is good for the league? You talk about guys that are at this superstar pedigree that so often will just like the load management argument. They want to take off games because they're tired. Jokic is not in that crowd. He is not in that committee. He's not coming here to take games off. He shows up every single day. He might not score 30 every game, but he'll give you 18, 12, and 15.
I think a couple weeks ago, it might have been last week, he had a triple-double and he only played like a half. He had like 14, 11, and 11, and then the Nuggets were up like 25, and they're like, yeah, all right, get him out. So to your point, I mean, it's not necessarily load management. He's going out there to play, and he's kicking butt, and then when they finally are ahead by enough, they're like, all right, sit him down. That's how it should be.
That's the right way to do load management, though. That is the right way to do it. But so I would be surprised. But in my opinion, if the Nuggets do not get there, I got a team who I think is very slept on. The Phoenix Suns.
Oh!
And coming from Phoenix, obviously I'm a little biased, but Bradley Beal, Devin Booker, and Kevin Durant have not really gotten a fair chance to play all together yet this season. And I think they are priming all of them to come back and unite for the NBA playoffs. The big argument there is Phoenix is one of the least deep teams in the entire NBA. They have those three guys. They have Grayson Allen. They have Bol, but they have nobody on that bench. But they have role players that are starting to get there. And I think when you pair Kevin Durant and Devin Booker, two of the most prolific scorers in the league, with a guy like Bradley Beal that can do it all, and then you got Grayson Allen who's starting to shoot the lights out a little bit, that team is going to be feared, especially when they come full force in the playoffs.
So I initially, when the Suns made the move to get Bradley Beal, I hated it because I just think, I'm going to sound so old when I say this, there is only one ball, and I'm not talking about throughout the game. I'm talking about at the end of the game. I mean, there's one guy that's going to get the ball. We all know who that is. It's going to be Kevin Durant. So I don't know why you're using all these resources, trading all your depth, trading Chris Paul, one of the greatest point guards ever, for Bradley Beal. And I like Bradley Beal. He's a good player, but you're kind of right, Ethan. Like, it was kind of oil and water to begin with, but it does seem, I mean, they kind of made me eat crow a little bit. Like, some of these role players, younger guys, have stepped up into bigger roles. And the Suns, anytime you have a player like Kevin Durant, even if he's only 80% of what he was in his prime, because he is getting a little older, just like LeBron and Steph are, and that whole generation, like, I'm not going to bet against him. I'm not going to count him out of any situation. So we'll see where the chips fall. But the Suns, I'm with you. I mean, they're coming on strong. They're playing their best basketball here as spring approaches, and you can't count them out. I don't know if they're championship contenders, but I picked the Clippers. I don't really know if they are either. So I like you picking the Suns. How's that?
I don't hate that at all, Trent. I don't hate that at all. That's going to be, again, the NBA is going to be fun to watch as the season gets closer to ending. So basketball is in its prime right now, and I'm excited, man. I'm excited to watch today. I'm excited to watch some of these tournaments. I'm excited to watch the NBA games as the season winds down. With that being said, that's kind of it for the headlines, Trent. Why don't you say we move into our bread and butter, our throne room doghouse picks? I was in the lab with these picks. I'm not gonna lie. I was cooking a little bit. I was cooking a little bit, and I'm sure you were too. I started last week with the throne room. How about I throw it to you to start with your throne room pick this week?
I can certainly do that. All right. I did spend some time this morning really combing the internet looking for what I believe to be worthy of the crown. And I'm going to give it, Ethan. I'm going to stay in the NBA. So this is a perfect segue. I'm going to give it to Anthony Edwards of the Minnesota Timberwolves. So I'm not sure who caught this game. Probably not many people because it was on late. And I think it was on Thursday night. So T-Wolves are on the road against the Indiana Pacers. Score is tied 105 all, just over a minute to play. The Ant-Man knocks down a three to put the T-Wolves up three with just over a minute. Then he rips a vintage Michael Jordan mid-range pull-up to go up five. Okay, this is inside a minute now. Then another bucket, an off-balance runner to answer what the Pacers did on the other end. I didn't really look that up, full disclosure. And then with 7 seconds left, Ethan, the T-Wolves are up two. He misses a free throw to put him up three, okay? He misses a crucial free throw with 7 seconds left. The Pacers are running down the floor. I don't know if they had timeouts or what, but they're basically going for the tie to send this thing to OT at home. And he gets up, meets Aaron Nesmith at the summit, blocks it, vintage LeBron for the win to seal it. He said, Anthony Edwards said it was the highest he's ever jumped in his life. So I just give him credit for not only having the stones to do what he did down the stretch of that game, but also, kids, to play defense and give the effort and seal that thing on the defensive end. You don't see that a whole lot in this NBA, and I just want to give the Ant-Man his credit. Because the Timberwolves also, they're having a great year. And although Cat, I think, is going to be out for a minute here with
I'm worried about that.
A meniscus. But, hey, you've got a player like Anthony Edwards, and he showed it Thursday night. I mean, he's ready to kind of carry this team. So, Edwards, you get a crown. How's that?
Yeah. And he played great yesterday, too, against Cleveland. That was an overtime game. That was fun to watch. Ant Edwards he's the truth, man. He's the real deal. But that's a solid pick. That's a solid pick for a young guy. Like you said, man, with the throne room picks, there was a lot of different routes I could go. You know, you could talk about the Tennessee Volunteers. You could talk about how they've had the back-to-back road wins. You could talk about the people coming off of state wrestling championships. You can talk about some of the free agency news in the NFL. You can talk about who's going off in spring training. I wore this sweatshirt today, Trent. I wore this sweatshirt today in pride of my boys in Motown.
Let's go.
Specifically, Mr. Cade Cunningham, who has gotten a lot of heat from fans lately. People saying he's not worth the number one overall pick. People calling him not a bust, but people saying they should have went somewhere else. You could make that argument, but let me tell you an argument you cannot make, Trent. He is the sixth fastest player to 2,500 points and 800 assists. And ahead of him in that crowd is a very decorated company with LeBron James, Luka Doncic. I think Oscar Robertson is up there.
Allen Iverson and Trae Young.
Allen Iverson, Trae Young. All fantastic NBA players, all pros. The rings that are in that crowd, sure. So call Cade Cunningham what you want. But you cannot tell me that he is not doing the best that he can in the position that he is in. Because that's all we can do as people, right? We might be dealt a bad hand of cards, but it's not about what you do in that moment. It's about how you react to that moment. Cade Cunningham might not have gotten drafted into a very good organization. He's probably played with more players than most NBA players have in their entire career, right? He's got guys walking in and out of that Detroit locker room. But you know what he does? He's going to go out there when he can. He's going to give you 2,500, and he's going to give you 800 assists, right? And he is going to be the heart and soul of the Detroit Pistons for years and years to come. And I am sold on Cade Cunningham, and I am on the motorcade, and I'm ready to start winning.
I have beat the drum for Cade as well. So you're not going to hear any pushback from me. I love the kid. I think he was 100% worthy of that number one pick. And he's the only reason, I shouldn't say the only reason, because I like Jalen Duren, I like Asar Thompson, I like a couple of the young Pistons players. Cade Cunningham is 90% of the reason that I still tune in to watch a team with 10 wins. Beat the Brooklyn Nets on Thursday night, by the way.
Yeah, let me talk about that game with the Brooklyn Nets, because I was watching that entire thing. I heard a couple stats in there. At the end of the game, Cade Cunningham and Jaden Ivey both combined for, I think it was like 70, or it was like 68 to 70 points. And I think they were saying that was top 5 that any Pistons duo has ever scored together. Because there was like that one crazy Denver Nuggets Pistons game back then that was like...
Yes, the highest scoring game of all time. It was Isaiah Thomas and Alex English going at it. 1986, I think it was.
Yeah, exactly. But so I think it was top 5 highest scoring duo between those two. So that was cool to see. Did you know this stat, Trent? Cade Cunningham leads the NBA in 3-point percentage from the All-Star break.
It's the All-Star break. Yes, I saw that on Twitter the other day, and I was like, yeah, I guess he kind of has, because I've been watching, but I haven't really put it together in my head. Like, to me, Cade
just confidence.
He just shoots the ball. I mean, he's always been a good shooter, just not that. I was like, wow. I mean, it is believable. If you, and I guess that's only, what is that? Maybe like an 8-game sample size, but still, I mean, that's something.
That's something. And for shooting the ball as much as he does, I feel like that's really important. But yeah, I'm excited for my Pistons, man. I know that's pretty biased, but I don't care. But moving on to the doghouse, Trent, why don't you tell me who's getting the collar this week?
I've got such a weird tangent for this one this week.
So do I, bro.
But I do not care. I don't care. It's March. It's college basketball. And in case you didn't hear me rant enough and foam at the mouth enough about college basketball, I'll give you this to chew on. Indiana men's basketball. Okay? A once proud program, Ethan. 5 national titles, 8 Final Fours. But they haven't cracked the Sweet 16 since 2016 when you and I were sophomores in high school and getting our driver's licenses. So they weren't projected to do that much this season. So I'm not talking about, this isn't like that type of disappointment. It's not like they underachieved this year. They're just, it's part of a bigger issue, Ethan. They announced this week, this is what brought this up. So they announced this week that they're going to retain Mike Woodson as head coach next year. Okay?
Right.
Mike Woodson. I love him. Assistant on the 04 Pistons. I had to throw that in there. He's also a legend at Indiana. I mean, he won, I think 1980 it was, Big Ten Player of the Year at Indiana, Mike Woodson. So how can you fire that guy? It's tough. But I'll give you some examples, man. I mean, Patrick Ewing at Georgetown didn't work. Penny Hardaway at Memphis is kind of dodgy. Juwan Howard at Michigan, not working out. You know what I mean? So, like, you can't just hire the alum and go that direction. This is Indiana basketball. They haven't done anything since 2002. And for a team, a program that really has championed the Big Ten and kind of been a blue blood over the years, Ethan, in our lifetime, they haven't. I mean, what's the best Hoosier of our lifetime? Yogi Ferrell? Victor Oladipo?
Cody Zeller? Or North Carolina?
No,
Tyler Zeller.
One of the Zellers was Indiana. You're right. But anyways, neither here nor there. The point is, dude, it was a once proud program. It's fallen to a new low. The standard there now is just to make the tournament, which is sad. It's Indiana basketball. It's up there with, like, I mean, Ethan, the programs that made college basketball what it is today, like Indiana, UCLA, obviously Michigan State back in the day. These are programs that have built college hoops into the giant spectacle that it is right now. And I'm sad to see them so low. And look, as a Big Ten guy myself, I wouldn't mind if they keep sucking. I just think it's better for the sport if they're good. And so I'm throwing them in the doghouse for announcing this week that they're going to retain Mike Woodson. I think they should go in a different direction. He's 65 years old. He's not really the demo you want for a coach these days.
The game is changing, and he's not keeping up with it.
Precisely. And that's about all I got for the doghouse. And it pains me, Ethan, because like I said, I like Mike Woodson. I'm a Mike Woodson guy. He still wears the suit. He dyes the ever-living crap out of his beard, his goatee. He's a funny guy. I'll never forget my senior year of college. I got to cover the Big Ten tournament, and he referred to Illinois as Illinois. I loved that. I thought that was funny. I like Mike Woodson, but IU basketball, man, get it together. You got to go in a different direction.
Talk about a program that's just stuck in their days a little bit, that Indiana basketball. And you know what, Trent? The game is moving. The game is evolving. Mike Woodson has not evolved with it. So I'm with that. There are those teams in sports where it is better if they are good. Okay, there are those teams like we talked about a couple episodes ago, the New York Knicks. When the Knicks are good, it's better for the league, right?
Dude, Michigan football winning the Natty this year is great for
Phenomenal.
college basketball. Or college football, I mean. It's great for it.
Yeah.
And I hate Michigan, but I got to call a spade a spade. You know, it's great to have a non-SEC team that's not Ohio State win the Natty. It was great for the sport.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I agree.
Sorry.
I agree. I see no complaints with your doghouse pick. Trent, I'm not gonna lie, I'm gonna go a little off the rails here with my collar. I really wanted to make this pick something special, and I think I got a good story for us today.
Okay.
We're headed to Florida.
Come on down.
We're headed to the NFL. More specifically, we're headed to the organization of the Jacksonville Jaguars.
No.
Most specifically, we're going to talk about a story of an ex-employee named Amit Patel. Now, Amit Patel was released from the Jacksonville Jaguars. He was fired. He was let go, whatever you want to call it. He was let go and accused of stealing $22 million from the team.
It's a lot of money.
$22 million he allegedly stole from the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, how did he steal $22 million? What was this guy's role? Well, he was the administrator for the Jaguars virtual credit card program from September of 2019 to February of 2023. So this is pretty recent. Okay?
All right.
He allegedly conducted a scheme where he would steal that money coming through the virtual credit cards and use it to settle his own debts.
Oh God.
Okay? Now,
okay.
I don't want everyone to think I'm taking this off the cuff, okay? I very closely read an article from ESPN and an article from USA Today, and I'm cross-referencing them. Now, the biggest debt that Amit Patel had was gambling debts. Okay? Gamble responsibly, listeners of the Double Tech. Only bet what you have. Don't be like Amit Patel. Let this be a story where you can learn from it. So I'm quoting USA Today. Patel transferred approximately $20 million to FanDuel and $1 million to DraftKings and spent more than $5 million on items, including over $200,000 on golf memorabilia, such as a $47,000 Tiger Woods 1996 putter.
Dude, what are you doing? I mean, I know you got to have the man cave, but come on, what are we doing here?
And the list goes on with all of his expenditures because they were just released in court this past week. All of his expenditures and all the things that he spent money on. And man, this is tough. So, yeah, I won't go through the whole thing. But in other words, you have a position of prominence. You have a position of authority. And justice will prevail if you are up to some schemy crap. So, in that situation, Amit Patel, justice was served and stole $22 million from the Jacksonville Jaguars, and he will face a large amount of time in prison and have a large fine to get him out. So,
if you can't do the time, don't do the crime. Also, I'll say this too real quick. I used to always, the saying, money is the root of all evil?
Yes.
Now, over the years, I've kind of adopted my little catchphrase, which is social media is the root of all evil. I'm starting to pivot back to money, Ethan, because like that story you just gave, that's absolutely ridiculous. What are we doing? Get a grip on life, buddy. How much can you possibly be gambling to get that far into the hole? Exactly. And then to get out of the hole, you exploit the Jacksonville Jaguars. I mean, wow. Good pull by you, though. I mean, absolutely, that guy deserves to be in the doghouse. And quite literally, he's in the slammer. So,
100% in the doghouse. And, yeah, he's actually literally in the doghouse right now. So, yeah. Oh man, a couple of great throne room and doghouse picks. We are a little bit over an hour. We're at an hour 11 right now. We're gonna start wrapping things up. Trent, do you have anything more to say before we move on to our reflection and projection today?
Let's move on.
Let's do it. Okay. So, Trent, this might be a bailout for you a little bit, but I think
All right.
this is going to be pretty good. So we talk about March, we talk about madness, the drama, and we are going to focus in today on the last time that the Michigan State Spartans won the national championship, which was in the year 2000.
Okay.
This was the latest we've gone back, okay, or the earliest we've gone back.
Yeah.
The earliest year that we've gone back, all the way to 2000. And the Michigan State Spartans beat the number 5 seeded Florida Gators in the national championship.
Right.
Coached by Tom Izzo. That's a given.
No. Love
But
him.
we want to hear, Trent, being the Michigan State fanatic that you are, how many players from that roster, and people that are listening, me and Trent, we were born in 1999.
Right.
We don't know much about this 2000 team. We didn't watch it. Maybe we did, but we don't remember. But Trent, I'm banking on the fact that you might have done your research a little bit.
You know what? I gotta wear this one. This is gonna look bad because here's the thing. I mean,
this is tough.
as a proud alum and a diehard Michigan State basketball fan, I mean, I am very, very familiar with the teams we grew up with. Like I'm talking the 2005 Final Four team, the 2015 Final Four team that was a 7 seed and went all the way. Like, I know those teams like the back of my hand. As far as the 2 national championship rosters for Michigan State, 1979 with Magic, and then 2000, the Flintstones, I am not nearly as familiar as I should be. But we can kick it off if you're ready.
We're gonna kick it off, Trent. But I think, listen, I'm gonna set the line. I'm gonna set the line at 4.5, 3.5.
That's a good line. No, 4.5 is a good line. 3.5, that favors me a little bit more. But 4.5 is probably more fair.
Okay, we're gonna set the line at 4.5. I think I know 2 guys on this team.
Okay, so let's kick it off. Mateen Cleaves, number 12, the best player on that team.
Yes,
ended up being drafted by our Pistons, Ethan, and he was a total bust. But shout out to Mateen. Did you?
Yeah. Yeah.
Shout out.
Yeah, it's a random story. Yeah, anyways, I met him once.
That's cool. Mateen Cleaves. Morris Peterson, Mo Pete, he was the big man. He's got his jersey in the rafters of the Breslin Center. Shout out.
That's 2.
Jason Richardson, shooting guard, dunk
Freshman.
contest winner. Yeah.
Freshman.
He was a freshman. Okay. Matt Ishmael was on the team. He was a walk-on, but he's now the current owner of the Phoenix Suns. I know that.
Oh my gosh, is he?
Yeah. Yes. He's now like a billionaire. Shout out to him. But he owns the Suns. He was a walk-on at Michigan State. He didn't really play, but he was on the team for the sake of this segment here that we're doing, because I'm going to really disappoint some people here. So that's, what do I got? I got 4.
Yeah, you got 4.
And we set it at 4.5, and there's not another name that I'm confident in. I can give you a couple from that era that I think might be on the team. Charlie Bell, was he on the team?
Charlie Bell was a junior on the team.
Okay, there we go. That's
hammer the over.
That we hit the over. And honestly, Ethan, that's all I got. I know. Obviously, Tom Izzo was the coach. 2000. You and I were 1 year old. So, shout out. Actually, I wasn't even 1. I was like 6 months old. We were both like 6, 7 months old.
So, anybody else from that era that you could maybe say maybe there was a chance?
No.
I feel like you and David did this thing last week where you'd be like, man, so and so might have been on the team, and you guys were right every single time.
Yeah, dude. I got nothing. Charlie Bell's that's as deep as I go, and I know I'm gonna get kicked back for this because this is bad. I should know this, but
I mean, if you're talking about guys that were the scoring leaders and stuff, you had Charlie Bell in there. You had Mateen Cleaves, you had Mo Pete, Matt Ishbia, who got 0 tick. He never played.
None.
But I'm going to throw a couple more names at you, and I just want to know if you are, like, familiar with these people.
Yeah, I'm sure I will be. I just don't. Okay, go ahead. Go for it.
Andre Hudson.
Heard of him, yeah.
Okay, he was actually the second or the third highest scorer on the team.
Okay, I gotta get more familiar with the Hudson.
And then AJ Granger.
Yeah, I know these. I don't know anything about them, but like they're names that once you say it, I definitely have heard of them. I just don't. I got nothing.
The last one is Mike Chappelle.
That one is a little more on deaf ears. I'm not sure. But shout out.
Not bad. The overhit.
He's got that ring. No one can take that away from him.
Yeah. The overhit. So proud of you.
That was not my best work. But Ethan, I love anytime that you pick one of like my teams. I love that. So I appreciate you for picking the Michigan State Spartans this week after picking the Red Wings last week. So fun stuff.
I'm going to have to start making these a little harder, though, because people are going to start getting mad that we only choose Michigan teams.
That's true.
We're going to have to go around the horn a little bit.
We're going to have to go to that San Francisco 49ers Colin Kaepernick team that we did a couple weeks ago.
Oh, boy, Trent. Well, what a podcast, man. What a pod.
Yeah.
This has been,
if I do say so myself, pretty good.
We brought the heat today. Folks, if you are listening, throw us a 5-star rating if you enjoyed it. Throw us a like and subscription on the YouTube, a comment maybe a follow on the Instagram, follow on the old X now, okay? And maybe you throw some comments up there. I don't know, whatever you guys feel like doing, help us out here. We love the engagement. We love hearing what you guys have to say. We're men of the people here. We're men for the people. And this was a great podcast, Trent. What do you think? What are your closing thoughts here?
I do think this was a strong episode. I think, as the leader of the show, Ethan, I think you did a phenomenal job. I think that all the flowers thrown your way are warranted. He's one of the best I've ever seen.
That's awesome, man.
Better than any other podcast in the world. He's better. One of the best.
The best spot in America. The greatest. Make Spotify great again. Anyways, a little tangent there. Trent has a projection. He's going to put us out into the world. He's going to send us out into the world with a quote from ...
Michael Jackson, the king of pop himself. This is from more of a deep cut from Michael. It's called Scream. Came out in the late 90s, kind of when he was like a little bit more in the back of the scene a little bit. But this is in the spirit of college basketball, and I wish more mid-majors would make the tournament. And I just hate what the selection committee does every now and then, Ethan. I got these lyrics for you. Tired of injustice, tired of the schemes. The lies are disgusting, so what does it mean? You're kicking me down. I got to get up. As jacked as it sounds, the whole system sucks. Michael Jackson for you.
Well, folks, there you have it. Let's root for some mid-major teams. Let's root for the underdogs. We are against injustice. We must stand up against it. This has been an episode of the Double Tech Podcast, folks. Thank you so much for listening, and we will see you next week.